Today's guest is Katie Oberle. And you want to stick around because she breaks down the words that we hear every day. You hear mindfulness, you hear resilience, you hear creativity, and you wonder how you can use these big words in your daily life to achieve the goals that you want for yourself, to lead a fulfilled and intentional life. How can I break down mindfulness and use it in such a way that it doesn't feel woo-woo to me, and it feels like something that I can incorporate into my life? Stick around for this. Well, hello, friends. I hope you are having a wonderful start to your week. And today I am honored to have my friend, Katie Oberle, with us. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited because Katie is an independent marriage and family therapist. But she switched. Creative mindfulness is now your thing.
That's right.
And that's what pulls me to you as a creative mindfulness coach.
Mm.
Not only that, as a musician, a singer, and a songwriter. Speaks to my heart. That speaks to my heart. She is also the founder of the Bee Sanctuary, which is a Central Ohio well-being and healing arts collective. So Katie does help individuals, teams, and organizations to cultivate resilience. And I believe that these days we just hear the word resilience being thrown around left, right, and center. Compassion, connection. Those are all my words.
And joy.
And joy.
Yeah.
And you do this through practical mindfulness.
That's right.
And that speaks to me. Practical mindfulness is interchangeable with inner alignment.
That's right.
In my world. So, and we need these tools. We can use these words in a sentence. We can write them. We can read them. But how do we bring them to life? How do we cultivate practical, daily habits that bring resilience, compassion, and connection to our lives to help us deal with the stress?
That's exactly right. And that's why I love to have the word creative in the mix, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't just mean seated formal mindfulness, and that's going to work for everybody at every stage of your life at any time. So we're all innately creative, but sometimes just we forget that we can use our inner genius. We can use our own personality and our own strengths to find practices that really speak to us at the moments that we need them.
I love that you use the word inner genius, because very few people remind us that we have an inner genius. A lot of times we go around life beaten down by things left and right. And we feel worn out.
And we
feel
do that
stressed.
To ourselves sometimes.
Yes, and we do it to ourselves. And then the world does it to us, and we're like,
That's right.
It must be right.
Yeah.
I'm no good. And you know what? No matter how hard I try, I don't feel better. I'm taking all these medications. I'm doing all the things. I'm reading all the books. I'm listening to all the podcasts. Still, I don't feel better. What can I do?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes we're also so focused on transformation and bettering and growth and more, because we live in that kind of culture, that we do forget about enoughness.
Yes.
And just innate goodness, and that these things are inside of us. And sometimes it's just kind of the brushing away of all the top layers to get to that, to reconnect with those parts of ourselves.
I love that. I hope you caught on to the word that Katie used. Katie said enoughness. And I stopped right there. She kept on going, but I said enoughness. That's a word that I want. I want to be able to remind myself that I am enough, to stop and to be. So take us back. Take us back. What drew you? Previously, you were trained as a marriage therapist, as a family therapist, whom we all need. But you decided to switch to creative mindfulness. What sparked the switch for you?
I was struggling with enoughness, actually. I mean, I was struggling with sort of like hustling for worthiness. I was struggling with that the rigid narrative around being a therapist in that specific way. And it wasn't bringing me the joy that it had once brought me. And I like to say that I think I'm a pretty good therapist, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to forever be the right choice for me, because it really takes a lot of nervous system regulation to be able to sit with one other person, two other people, a family of other people. And I had to do a lot more of my own work from a long time ago, the things that I thought I had processed in my own, all that intergenerational stuff that we carry forward. I realized that I needed to do things a lot more mindfully to figure out why I wasn't connecting with my joy. So I just really stepped back, and that was during COVID. So everybody was stepping back. It was sort of the great reevaluation.
Yes.
So it's very in vogue. And so I just circled the wagons and thought about it and ended up having to find for my own mental health and nervous system regulation a lot of the practices that now I share with other people. And so I walked that walk, and I still walk the walk because I need those practices to keep me aligned. And then I told myself, okay, if I, as a trained therapist with many years of experience, don't know how to like connect with these things or find these things easily, then other people are having trouble too. So I wanted to normalize it. I wanted to depathologize it. I wanted to just bring it to a lot of different venues and people. I talk to all sorts of different organizations and businesses and individuals. I do one-on-one mindfulness coaching too, but sometimes you language all these concepts differently for different audiences, but the bones are the same, right? And that's been a beautiful journey for me that I continue to go on because everything is a practice.
Everything is a practice, Katie. But the way you say it, when I look at it in our healthcare system, I had somebody talk to me the other day. She said, Emlah, your podcast, I look at you as an integrative pharmacist, so I'm expecting some science stuff from you, some biochemistry, mechanism of action, pharmacodynamics, and pharmacology of medications and supplements and this all the time. And I go, yes, you will get that. Yes, that is my clinical training. Yes, marriage counseling and family therapy is your clinical training. But in addition to is the word that I always use. In the United States, we have done a phenomenal job of focusing on the treatment. My tagline at the pharmacy is there's a lot more to health than prescriptions. So for the amount of prescriptions that we take and still not feel better, every time I'm reminded of when I do comprehensive health reviews and I have people bring all their prescriptions and all their supplements to the pharmacy, I get bags and bags upon bags. And people bring them all to the pharmacy. We lay it out on the table and go through them, synchronize, talk about drug interactions, which ones they should and should not be taking, make plans and talk with their physician or healthcare providers about it.
Yeah.
But we're taking all these prescriptions and still not feeling better.
Yeah. Yep.
Because we're missing a piece. We're missing the piece of inner alignment and positive social connections. And that's part of the reason why I started this podcast. And I coined it intentional living to be able to bring those two, to marry those to the therapeutic and pharmacological aspects of healthcare and bring them together because we're not in isolation. We need nutrition, we need movement, we need inner alignment, we need the prescriptions, we need each other. So I talk about doing that for myself. That was partially for myself. So selfishly there, I created this podcast to be able to fulfill an inner desire of mine, to be able to fulfill my life and be able to make that change. A lot of people are feeling that, that stuck. Oh, what should I do now? I don't really find joy in my work or fulfillment. And I had a friend she said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
I love that.
So, and that she uses that as a yardstick to make decisions.
Yeah.
So when I did this and I coined this, I brought this podcast on. When I say intentional living, what comes to mind? Yeah. What is your definition of intentional living?
Well, that's why I was drawn to your podcast too, with the name of it. I was like, yes, absolutely. Intention. So we can do anything mindlessly or we can do anything mindfully. And so I do believe that mindfulness is the foundation that allows us to live intentionally, right? So really all mindfulness means is paying attention, waking up to what's around us and within us in any given moment. I always have to remind people mindfulness is not synonymous with relaxation. So this idea that now that I'm looking at everything, I've unveiled what's here, that's sometimes just really confrontational and we don't like what we see. Yeah. And it's easier to redraw the veil and just maybe take the medications in some cases, right? Yes. That just kind of are at the symptom level, but it's really about pulling, it's like in the Wizard of Oz, right? Like pulling back the curtain and seeing what's really there and then being able to say, okay, now that I see what's really here, I can make choices that are in alignment with my highest intentions, with my deepest held values. And that is always a practice. It never is like we never arrive at our value. Now I've achieved kindness, so I don't need to practice anymore, right?
I wish.
It's just always the direction that we're moving into. It's a compass, right?
So anybody listening to us right now and hear you talk about mindfulness, what are some practical ways that we can begin to be mindful? You said mindfulness is not synonymous to relaxation.
Right.
What are some ways? Take, for example, I am working at the pharmacy. Wake up in the morning, drop my kids at school, go to work, clock in and start working.
That's right.
How can I be mindful during my day?
These micro practices have been shown to be really effective. So that the sort of dosage effect of like how many minutes do we need in a mindfulness practice start to finish? You don't need to do 20 minutes of seated meditation, right?
Okay.
And a lot of people just say, well, since I don't have time for that, I can't really be mindful, I guess.
Yes.
And that's just not true. So it's in any moment, we have the power to shift our attention. So if all you have is a moment, you can shift your attention to some aspect of your present moment experience and just notice that. So in your case, maybe it would be when you turn the car off, you pull into your parking spot.
Yes.
And your hands are on the wheel, and you notice the sensation of your hands on the wheel, and you notice your breathing. And then maybe you realize that your eyes are closed and you open them, or you realize that your eyes are open and you decide to close them, and then you notice what that is. If your eyes are open, maybe that you scan and look at the sky. Maybe you see a bird. You don't have to focus on anything specifically, but there are so many choice points. So for a lot of people in traditional meditation, the breath is an anchor that links us to the present moment because we're always breathing in the present moment. So that's helpful for some people, but not for everybody. I don't love it. I'm a naturally anxious person. And so sometimes focusing too much on my breath just makes me more anxious. I get almost like a panicky reaction, and I'm not alone. And so if you're one of those people, then sometimes it is opening your eyes and putting your awareness external, still to what's going on in the moment. But that's why nature can be so restorative. And that's why sound and music can be so restorative, because those things are also happening in the present moment. But they're outside of ourselves if we're listening. But they can also be inside of ourselves if we're humming along or we're singing or we're noticing. So this is what lights me up, because there's just no end to the choice points we have.
Because we have been so far removed from that aspect of life, from the
aliveness.
From the aliveness.
And the enoughness.
From the moment, we've been so far removed. Because by the time I'm pulling into work, my mind is on the queues at the pharmacy. There are this number of people that I have to call. There are these, voicemails that I have to do. There are these compounds that I have to make. I'm already thinking of all the problems that I have to solve in the next 5 hours or the next 8 hours.
And so even for that, when you notice yourself doing that, you can say to yourself, oh, planning. Or if you find yourself thinking back to maybe a disgruntled conversation you had with your husband or wife in the morning or something, it's like, oh, okay, regretting or, reliving.
So naming the feeling.
So it's labeling. Mental labeling, right? And that can be really helpful. So as soon as you label it, you're not it, right? It's not like you're synonymous with the rumination or the planning. It's like, oh, I am aware there is planning going on in my mind right now. That's a moment of mindfulness, even just that.
Moment of mindfulness. So in that moment, I'm sitting there, I have 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then I find myself ruminating. I label the feeling.
As soon as you realize you're ruminating, you may not realize it for a couple minutes, right? You may be just lost in that for a couple minutes. As soon as you realize it, that's mindfulness.
Okay.
You're back. And you're the observer of the inner. It's sort of like seeing yourself as the sky looking at the weather.
Okay.
Right? So you're the big sky.
A few years ago when I started practicing mindfulness, I found it very hard to convince myself that these micro moments of mindfulness were actually useful.
Right.
Even though the science says it, the research says it,
Sure.
But I found myself like, are you sure this is not a waste of my time? Are you sure I'm not just sitting here wasting time when I could be out there being productive?
I struggle with that. I challenge myself to do 10 minutes of seated meditation most days. I don't say every day because I don't want to lock myself in.
Yes.
But because it's hard for me, I know that my body and my soul needs it. So And I think that having a consistent practice, sort of like thinking about going to the gym, like a mini session, right, of weightlifting, but it's a mini session of meditation consistently, can just start training your brain, right? Those are the neural pathways, and then we're training. Now, see, we're starting to speak your science language now.
Like that. I like that. I started smiling before you even went to the neural pathways because you said mini session of weightlifting.
Yeah.
So that makes it practical for some people. So my fitness people will get it. So you don't have to do 1 hour at the gym.
Right.
It doesn't have to be 1 hour.
That's right. Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. So 10 minutes of a brisk walk can change your brain chemistry.
Yes.
So the neural pathways, it appeals to me now. Now I speak.
Yeah.
Okay. So 10 minutes of a brisk walk after lunch or after dinner changes your brain chemistry.
Yeah. And experiment with that walk.
Yes. Tell me.
On that walk, you don't have to walk slowly to walk mindfully, but sometimes it's helpful.
Yes.
So maybe you briskly walk for 9 of those 10 minutes.
Yes.
And for the last minute, you slow down.
Yes.
You notice your breathing. You notice the sensation of your feet on the ground. You take your earbuds out if you have been listening to music, and you listen to the farthest away sound you can hear. You notice the closest up sound that you can hear. So you're just turning on your senses. And that's mindfulness too.
That is mindfulness. And so these small, consistent steps in the direction of our intentional life begin to add up. And I usually say, if a fulfilled life is up here where you want to be, intentional living and mindfulness are these tiny steps that you take.
That's
moving towards there.
That's right.
And we're always moving.
Yes. When I talk about there's state mindfulness and trait mindfulness, just like there's state gratitude and trait gratitude. And what I mean
School
by
me
that,
on the difference. Yeah.
So we can be in a state of gratitude about, we just had the holidays a little bit ago, right? A gift we received. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much. That's being in a state of gratitude. But when we practice gratitude over and over, noticing the things in our life that are enough, noticing the things about us that are enough, we start tuning into those things. We start walking mentally our brains in a different pattern. Neural pathways are lighting up, and we are training our brain to then become someone who is grateful. And that's a trait of gratefulness, of gratitude. So why does all this matter, right? Like, why do we practice gratitude? Why would we want to be a grateful person? Why do we practice mindfulness and be a mindful person? For me, I do it because it doesn't feel good to be a jerk to other people. And I don't like when people are a jerk to me. And I think the world needs more kindness and light. And that's just how I want to show up. And that's what I think is going to move the needle. And it starts with inside every single one of us. Yes. It can be overwhelming to look at all what's going on in the world and everything that breaks our hearts. But when I remember that what I do can cause a ripple just by how I show up in a room, how I interact with somebody, my intentions and my values coming to life in my choices and my behaviors, that does start to move the needle. So that gives me faith, and that is why I do what I do. That's the why.
This podcast is sponsored by Journeys, your path to intentional wellness. Most health problems don't start overnight, and neither does wellness. With Journeys, you can take charge of your health before you have to. Every cell in your body is speaking to you. But when we ignore preventive medicine, we wait until those cells are screaming. Journeys helps you listen to the whispers. There are 3 different journeys to choose from, each designed to meet you where you are in your wellness path. The Core Wellness Journey for $199 offers a foundational look at your overall health, perfect for getting started and measuring 66 biomarkers. The Advanced Heart and Metabolic Health Journey for $339 measures 111 biomarkers and goes deeper into cardiovascular, metabolic, and thyroid health for a more detailed picture. The Comprehensive Longevity and Hormone Journey costs $469 and is the most complete view, including hormone, nutrient markers that support energy, balance, and healthy aging. This measures 120 biomarkers. Each journey includes a personalized recommendation, one-on-one care from your pharmacist, and follow-up support to help you turn results into lasting intentional change. You just won't get data. You'll get guidance, accountability, and a partner in your wellness journey. Intentional living means paying attention, staying curious, and taking steps towards the health you deserve. Start your journeys today. click the link in the show notes. That is so empowering. That is empowering because I take that and I multiply it by a number of us practicing that, and that just starts to grow. I want to bring you back. You mentioned the neuronal pathways. Talk to me about the science of mindfulness and how it affects our neurotransmitters and how that in turn affects our health and how we can begin to feel better. See, for example, I have diabetes or I have a chronic disease and I need to practice mindfulness in addition to taking my medications and eating right and moving. Yeah. We stack that inner alignment on it. How is it going to affect us to reduce inflammation?
Yeah, well, it can really affect our mood, and mood is linked to a lot of somatic conditions, right? Yes. So when we think about what's going on in our brains, serotonin and dopamine and those feel-good chemicals, those are happening. When we think about what's happening in our nervous system, I said it's not synonymous with relaxation, but that can be a byproduct. And it often happens because we are usually slowing down when we're practicing mindfulness. And then we get aware of have I been clenching my jaw and my whole body? I'm maybe more in tune to where there are parts of my body that are inflamed or not feeling good. And so maybe I'm going to seek support sooner for those things. There's so many things that kind of are a domino effect in a good way from practicing mindfulness. But on a nervous system, way, we're moving from that sympathetic nervous system activation, chronic stress, to rest and digest, sort of that down regulation. So we're helping our bodies feel what it's like to just be and not do in a frenetic, hustly way. And that is what our bodies are craving because there's the cortisol is flowing all the time. Yes. And we need to know that the other is possible, right? That is also how we can exist. So, there are countless studies that are really focused on the biomechanics of all of this. One, I'll point you towards some research that Richard Davidson has been doing at University of Wisconsin, I believe. And he does a lot with, he's hooked up all these wires to monks' brains, right? So they're observing what is actually going on in the brains of monks, right? Who are doing the most meditation for the longest periods of time. Yes. But then they're also looking at, people that are doing meditation and mindfulness in much, much smaller doses. Yes. So he does a great job of that. There are many researchers that are doing a lot of the brain research around mindfulness. Yes. Dr. Rick Hansen, Dr. Richard Davidson, the Greater Good Science Center, I think I'm getting it right. But there are so many places to look for reputable research on meditation and mindfulness. Yes. So people I think it's easy to make a lot of giant claims. It is not a fix-it situation, right? It's not this is going to solve all your problems and I will prescribe it and then you will get better right away.
It's an addition to.
Right. It's an addition to. And just ultimately what's helpful for health is diet and exercise, right? And so add that in, and these are all practices that over time we do little step by little step that creates those habits, that creates us into being the people that are healthy, grateful, mindful.
I love that. Healthy, grateful, mindful. I think this is a perfect place to stop and think about the biomarkers that are in our body, because she talked about the neural pathways and the science out of University of Wisconsin that they're doing all these measurements. So I think it's a good time to pause and think about measuring your own biomarkers. But when you measure your own biomarkers, you can measure amount of cortisol in your body, when you awaken.
It's a greater level of awareness, right?
And you measure your level of inflammation, and you can be able to take steps.
That's right.
Intentional steps to go towards it. And all this, again, it's a journey, one step at a time. And you mentioned forest bathing. I want you to tell us about forest bathing. What is forest bathing and what are the benefits?
Sure.
Scientific
it
benefits
comes
of
from
forest bathing.
That term forest bathing comes from the Japanese term Shinrin-yoku. And it really just means bathing in the air of the forest. So there is no actual bathing required. Don't wear your swimsuit into the forest. You can if you want. But it really just means that you are engaging in slow, mindful, sensory-based time in nature. There has also been...
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, slow, intentional, sensory-based time in nature. Mindful, right? So you are using your senses, even your imaginal sense, but obviously your sense of smell and touch and your sense of hearing and seeing. There is so much research also that's been done about the benefits of green spaces and the practice of forest bathing itself. Actually, the Japanese government in the last 30-some years has put millions of dollars into researching forest bathing. So it's evidence-based. But on its surface, it can kind of look like people walking like zombies through a forest and like staring at a tree. So it's okay. But that's why I guide people. Sometimes I'll, I do these usually quarterly in partnership with like our local Parks and Rec department. And so we'll just go into like your neighborhood park that I love to do it in this one near where I live that has like a little stream and walking paths, and it's not giant, so you can't get lost. But we talk about, at the beginning, we'll meet together and talk about, what's nature done for you and how can also you remember what you can do for nature in the sense of you being a part of nature and it being this reciprocal relationship where you can give thanks to the trees that give you oxygen, and you can pick up a piece of trash if you see it, and you can acknowledge that there's a whole ecosystem of animals that live in this forest alongside the road, right, that we're driving down, and everybody gets to be there, but we're all connected. And so the benefits are, they're biological benefits that you could look up, but there's also, I think, soulful benefits, right? I feel more connected. Sometimes I feel smaller when I come out of a forest, and that's a good thing because I remember, it's not all about me. I'm not the star of this show. There's a lot more going on, and it puts things in perspective. It brings humility online, appreciation, and reverence.
Humility, appreciation, and reverence. If I hear you right, in my words, this is what I'm taking. So if I have the option, we know that movement is really important to optimal health. So if I have the option to go walk in the busy streets of downtown and the option to go to my local park, I'm better off picking my local park. So to walk in the forest, to walk in nature, because there's additional benefits to walking in nature than walking on the busy streets downtown.
That's right.
Basically, that's what it is.
That's true.
So bringing it to practical steps. So every time I have the chance to go to my park and take a walk around the park, wonderful.
Do it. And if you can't get to a park, can you just walk around your block? I mean, nature is everywhere. We're a part of it. So there are going to be birds. There's probably going to be a squirrel. You're probably going to see an ant, wherever you are. So just use what you have where you are. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just like if at home you don't have to have this like little meditation room and like, since I don't have a meditation room, I can't, do meditation. No, like you just create it from what you have. All of this is really free, right? It's just reminding you that it's there for the taking.
And that's one thing too. We minimize mindfulness because it's free. We minimize mindfulness because we have not paid attention to it enough. And we think, we don't pay extremely high dollars for this. I'm not paying $500 for this like I'm paying for my brand name medication.
Right.
And so that is not so. It's an addition to, so intentional living and mindfulness is not perfection. It is progression.
That's right.
In the direction of our personal values, of what matters to us. And that looks
for
different.
the benefit of all beings.
Because once I get there, my little contribution, your little contribution, it all gets better. Like you said, what you bring to the table. Thank you so much for this lovely. It's just nice to bring it into perspective. So where can people find you? Like to get teams and organizations and individuals find you to work with you?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, my website is Katie Oberle Creative. That's with a Y, KatyoBerle, creative.com. I have lots of information there about how to engage with me to work in a group setting, like you said, with an organization or business, or if you want to work one-on-one. And as you said earlier, I'm the co-founder along with my friend, the owner of the Bee Sanctuary. Her name is Deborah. She's wonderful. And we both invite you to come to Upper Arlington, where we are, and we're at the BBE sanctuary.org is our website. And you can also check out my music. I call it mindful folk pop music. And I just came out with a new EP a couple months ago. And all of the songs really relate to loving kindness and compassion, interconnectedness, mindfulness. And you can find that under my name anywhere you stream music.
We listened to a few of your songs on Spotify, and my daughter said, "Mom, her music makes me want to fall asleep."
Yes, I usually get like, wow, you sound like a Disney princess, or it's really relaxing. I mean, I'll take it.
So yes. So Mala said your music makes her want to fall asleep. And that's a good thing. I love that. That is the relaxation that it brings. It's calming, very calming. So we listen to a few on there. It's on Spotify. We will put links in the show notes to how to get in touch with Katie. Katie, thank you very much for being here. But I have to ask you, it's time for my favorite section of the show, and this is Supplement School with Emlah, where there is no test, no exam. But what supplement is on your mind today, my dear?
Okay, so the only supplement that I take that's on my mind is vitamin B12, because I eat mostly a vegetarian diet. I had periods of time where I was vegan, and now I'm an ovo-lacto vegetarian. So I'm eating some cheese and eggs sometimes, but no meat. And so that, I've been told, is a supplement that I should have in my diet. And one of my girls is also vegetarian, so I give her B12 as well. So tell me more about if I'm on the right track. Is that something good for my body?
Wonderful. That is absolutely essential for your body. As a vegetarian, as a vegan, or somebody who eats a predominantly plant-based meal, without question, that is the one supplement that you should be taking, B12, because you're not going to get that from plants. You can only get it from animals. So you need to be supplementing with B12. And B12 is water soluble. So you can't overdose on B12. So a methylated B12, I'm going to put a link to the methylated B12 in the show notes. And B vitamins are some things that are just very essential for our stressful lifestyle. So we encounter a lot of stress and fatigue, depletion of energy levels. When somebody comes and goes, "I'm fatigued, I feel tired, I have brain fog," chances are your B12 are low. And the range for B12 is somewhere around 200 to almost 900. So you could be like around 200, still be within range, but still on the low end. So you'll still be feeling that fatigue, like around 1 p.m., you start feeling tired and things like that from stress of the workday. So I highly recommend B12 levels be checked. So we'll put a link in the show notes to our journeys where you can test your B12 levels. I recommend that whether you're a vegetarian or not, or vegan or not, make sure you know your B12 levels. And then you supplement accordingly. So, and always a methylated B12, because it's not only for the energy levels, for the fatigue and brain fog. B12 is also very important for mental cognition. So that's one of the things. And there's certain medications to that deplete B12. So certain people who are taking metformin is one. If I'm dispensing metformin for anybody type 2 diabetic or PCOS, anybody taking metformin, wonderful medication, helps with blood sugar control, but one of the things that it does to the body is that it depletes B12. It steals as I call it, the nutrient thieves. It steals your B12 from your body. And so you have to replenish B12, a methylated B12, if you're taking metformin. Another thing, birth control. If you're on any form of birth control, that also depletes your B12. So there's several medications that deplete B12. These are two of the most popular ones. So if you're taking any of these medications, stop by the pharmacy, pick up a B12 and take. And B12, I highly recommend to be taken in the morning. So because it kind of increases your energy levels. It's not something you want to take at lunchtime or at dinner time, because that's probably going to keep you up at night if you're taking a vitamin. Even some multivitamins that contain B12. Multivitamins that have high B vitamins in them, take them in the morning. Because that's going to, if you keep taking it in the evening, it's going to push you to having difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. So, and we don't want that.
Okay,
so,
see, I learned something.
We don't want that. So we want to be taking our B12s in the morning, and we want to make sure that our B12 is methylated.
Okay.
So the right form of B12, I'll put a link in the show notes. And what else? The other good thing about B12 is that it has literally no drug interactions with any medication. You can take it when you're on any medication. So there's really, I cannot think of any medication off the top of my head that B12 really interacts with. So, and your body uses it up. on a daily basis. So the chances of going very high on B12 is really slim as well. So always get it measured. A lot of times you'd have to ask for it because it's not in major guidelines unless you're taking certain anti-seizure medications. Certain seizure medications to also deplete B12 levels. So, but some doctors will measure it if you're on those medications as well.
So good to know too, if you're interested
yes.
in a vegetarian or vegan diet, is
Yes.
that should be a part of it. And I will tell you, there's a lot more vegan and vegetarian options out there than there used to be.
Oh,
a
there
lot
are
more cookbooks and,
Yes.
you know, and even when you go out. So it's good for the planet. It's good for your body. Just think about it.
Absolutely. And very good. And lower levels of inflammation, better cholesterol management, lower levels of chronic diseases overall, in addition to that's the nutrition, in addition to movement, inner alignment, and positive social connections, which we have to consider every single one of those pillars. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you, Katie. And if you have listened to this and found this inspirational in any way, I highly ask for a gift to share it with people. So this positive social connections part is, share this podcast with a friend, a family member who you think would benefit from our conversation of mindfulness today.